Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
Guys, it is going to be so good when we can actually do that in person. It's going to sound so much better when we're in a room togetre.
We're going to have to remember how we used to do it because it was different.
That's a good point.
Back in the olden times.
Back in pre-coronavirus times. We are back again this week with another episode for you all to enjoy and have fun with. Last week, thank you all so much for watching our episode and creating space for us to talk about what was happening in the world and what is still currently happening in the world and in the country. And we got so many great responses from you all. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes on the episode and your views, especially. And for those of you who downloaded us and listened to us on the podcast feed, thank you as well. You know, we really appreciated all the positive comments that were coming our way. We were hesitant to have that conversation, and it seems like we made the right decision by having it, since you all were very receptive to our points of views. But let's introduce ourselves. I am John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host here in Los Angeles, CEO of the Outlaw Nation.
I am Michael Vogel. I am a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And I am Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, where you may have seen me on Teen Wolf, The Mindy Project, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
And still figuring out that microphone thing, Shannon. Still figuring out.
Is it not working?
Where's your microphone?
I've got the lav connected.
Not connected to your shirt. Is it on your shirt?
No, I've got it on the laptop right here because I figure I have that classical theater training. I speak from the diaphragm, so I don't need the lav right here.
I love it when we have these behind the scenes conversations on the air.
Can you not hear it well? Do I need to put
No, we can hear you. You could hear the echo a little bit too. So maybe next week we'll figure out how to attach it to actually a piece of your body. We see for that from there.
I'm a small guy. There's not a lot to attach it to.
Anyway, we got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about some geek news items. For those of you who are new to our show, thank you so much for taking a chance on us. For those who are returning, thank you for continuing your support of the Geek Buddies. But for those of you who are first timers, the way the Geek Buddies works is each one of us presents a geek news item in the first half of our show. We talk about them, and then we take a little bit of a mini break for our podcast listeners to listen to our sponsors, and then we move on to our main topic. And today our main topic is essentially tackling the idea of cancel culture and also what's been happening recently with J.K. Rowling, that Hartley guy from The Flash, and a number of other things that have popped up over the world in the world of entertainment concerning cancel culture and everything that's happening as a result of these protest movements and this desire for people to be called out for past stuff and current stuff in the world today. But let's start out on a lighter note. What do you got for us, Shannon?
Yeah, this week we got the first trailer for Bill and Ted Face the Music, the third entry in the Bill and Ted franchise. This trailer came out this week. It was nice to have something fun to watch. I mean, it was a short trailer. But yeah, we get to see glimpses of Holland Taylor's character. We got to see glimpses of Bill and Ted's daughters. But basically, it sort of reinforces what we already know about the plot, that Bill and Ted are now middle-aged. They have not written the song that's going to change the world. And sort of what do they do from here? I definitely have thoughts about this trailer. I'll be curious to hear what you guys think. Did you think it was excellent or bogus?
Oh, nice prep. Mike, you go ahead. What do you do?
No, please, Johnny. Please, Johnny. Okay, I'd like to hear your thoughts first.
Here's what I'll say. I like the first movie. I somewhat enjoy the second movie, but really it's Bill Sadler or William Sadler. He's the one that sells me on the second movie, Playing Death, an obvious reference to Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. Really funny stuff, their interactions. Overall, though, I didn't think it was as strong as the first movie. Now moving into the third movie, this is 29 years later. You know, I have my trepidation. A lot of the 80s nostalgia recently hasn't really worked in terms of box office or in terms of critical reception. So I have a little bit of concern here. But I think we're in good hands with the director from Galaxy Quest taking this over. And I liked the trailer. I thought it was too short, in my opinion. I would have loved a 2.5 minute trailer. That would have been nice. We do get Keanu and Alex. I mean, you can tell Keanu's struggling a little bit to really convey that character again, and that's okay. I create space for it, but it's very charming, and it's great to see their chemistry still there. These are middle-aged guys, and they certainly radiate that. So it's kind of part of going along with the film. You have to accept that conceit. The two daughters there, Samara Weaving, it's great to see them as well. We do get a little bit of Holland Taylor on those floating characters, but they cop out in using the time machine, using the telephone booth, what they've known before. So I'm curious to see, A, who's going to take over for the Rufus character, B, what's this whole idea of them being in prison and getting so swole by the end of that trailer, and see how this all kind of blows up in their face. And we find out how they, actually write that song, if they ever write that song, to save the world. But be excellent to each other. It's not a terrible message in such a tumultuous time that we're going through now in our world.
Yeah, I think that's all true. I think that it was fine. I think that I was excited. I think I was excited when I saw that the trailer had come out. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna see what this is. And I watched it and I'm like, okay, we'll see. Nothing that was like a giant red flag. Definitely, I will say, like, watching it a little bit felt like it was a movie that had come out in the 80s and had just like someone had just like found it and dusted it off and was like, hey, here's a trailer from a long time ago. It didn't really feel like a modern take on Bill and Ted to me. It felt like a continuation, which maybe will be a good thing, maybe will be a bad thing. I think it's a solid idea for the plot. They've not written the song that we all thought that they had kind of already written and had been done. And so it's not there yet. They haven't fulfilled their destinies. I think that's cool. I think, the idea, depending on how much they're going to dive into this, the idea of being younger and thinking that you were going to change the world, and then being middle-aged and realizing that you haven't done what you thought you were going to do could be, there's a lot there. There's a lot to work with. Yeah. It does seem like, especially seeing them at the end all roided out in that prison, it seems like maybe we're going to be traveling down different possible futures as they try and figure out, because like the whole plot is let's just go into the future and steal the song from ourselves. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a, sort of Back to the Future sort of skewed timelines, and in this timeline we're in prison, and in this timeline we did this, and I think it's going to be a lot harder to steal the song than they thought, obviously. And so I think that there's a lot of possibility. It could be really fun. I don't think the trailer bowled me over. Although, as you said, like, we're in the hands of the guy that brought us Galaxy Quest, and those are not bad hands to be. I mean, the tone and the flavor of what this should be is 100% in that Galaxy Quest pocket, which is kind of ridiculous, super silly, but with really strong heart underneath it. And if they can manage that with this, I think they'll have a lot of really, really happy middle-aged dudes from the 80s.
I echo most of those sentiments. I do agree that it's a really, really good idea. Dean Pariseau, ideally the guy who directed Galaxy Quest, those are good hands. This is also the guy that directed Red 2. Which was not a great movie. I want this movie to be so good, so bad. I do have an affection for the Bill and Ted franchise. A lot of that comes from me doing the Bill and Ted Halloween show at Universal Studios for Halloween Horror Nights. So I do have an affection for the property. But yeah, I agree. I think Keanu Reeves may just be past this. I really want it to be good. And the two actresses that are playing their daughters, Samara Weaving and Brigitte Lundy Payne, I think her name is. Yeah. They're both very, very funny. And the two that are playing the princess wives, Jayma Mays and the other, I think it's Erin O'Neill. They have Erin Hayes. Thank you. They have a very stacked cast in terms of comedy, but the movie could be coming out in 2 months, and this was a very, very short trailer that we got. So I am apprehensive right now. I really want it to be good. Right now, I'm a little uncertain. I thought Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was going to be fantastic, and I left the theater just kind of like, I wish they would have brought Genghis Khan and Napoleon back.
Yeah, underwhelmed, and that's the right feeling I think to have when you walk out of Bogus Journey. you're right. I mean, it's coming out in 2 months. It's supposed to be coming out on August 21st. You wonder if they only wanted to show this much to kind of get people like feeling that the vibe of the original franchise is there. I don't know, but I don't expect this movie to be incredible or great. I expect this to be a nice, pleasant time in the theater, and just don't mess it up. That's basically my approach to this.
And if we get a nice
expectations,
if we get a nice, pleasant time, I will be very, very happy. The vibe that I get from the trailer. You guys will argue this, but I always feel like I've been a little bit prophetic with trailers. When I see something, I'm like, oh, it's going to be bad. Yes. Rise of Skywalker, Michael.
Hollywood should hire you. Hollywood should hire you. You're so accurate. If only they had somebody like you that could just like, you got your finger on the pulse. You just know. And when you know. It's great.
Fair point.
I don't want to leave the theater making this face at you guys. Yeah. I hope that's not the face I make.
Or this one. It's fine. That's the worst. But Mike, do you hold any expectations on this one, Mike? I mean, you're sitting there sour-faced a little bit. Are you just not feeling it?
I don't. I love Bill and Ted. I remember going to see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure at the AMC 6 at the Oaks Mall in Gainesville, Florida, and just loving it so much. And I will say, out of the three of us, I probably I'm not going to say that Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is good, but I give it a pass for sheer ridiculousness. Like, it's not good. It's kind of a mess. Like Johnny, I think death is maybe the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think just the just balls out what the hell is even happening with the robots and station and heaven and hell. Like, it's so audaciously ridiculous that I think it's kind of quaint, cute. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have high expectations here. This is not going to be one of the several times that I argue with Shannon about his seeming psychic trailer abilities. I think it'll be fun to go see. At this point, I think we're about to talk about this, but I think it's, at this point, it'll be fun to see anything in a movie theater. So I'll definitely go see it. And I think if I have a good time and it gives me a few chuckles, I will be nostalgically happy, but I don't think this one is going to be bowling anybody over.
Oh, fair. I think that's, absolutely. What you mentioned, Mike, let's move on to our next story. And that's, connected to Bill and Ted. It's supposed to come out, I think August 21st at this point. They haven't moved the date. Yeah, August 21st. They haven't moved the date. And if things go according to plan for these movie theaters, it will absolutely screen on August 21st. Because right now we're getting a lot of reports or a number of websites talking about these movie theaters opening. The AMC has a plan to open by July. California, which has a large number of movie theaters, they apparently can start opening their movie theaters this Friday. That's insane as you're watching this. So if you're watching this when we drop it on a Thursday, that's tomorrow. Movie theaters are available to be opened on Friday in most counties if they limit their theater capacity to 25% or no more than 100 people in that theater. They're going to sell the tickets in certain blocks, certain sections, so you get like 6 feet of distance. So only certain number or certain seat numbers are going to be available for you to purchase, and they'll trust that you'll maintain that 6 feet of distance. There's even suggestions that they'll use toilet cover, toilet cover, those cloth toilet, whatever those things are. You go into the bathroom and put on the toilet covers using that to like
toilet covers.
I guess toilet covers. It's a handle. I don't know. I've never used them, so I don't like
the thing. The thing that you use to cover the toilet in the bathroom would be the toilet cover.
The uncomfortable thing you have to sit on when you're in a public bathroom. But they want to use that to open the door, so you don't have to touch the actual handles. You have to wear. There's a suggestion that you wear a face mask going into the theater and leaving the theater and getting concessions, but not necessarily in the theater. And of course, there's a lot of this is so interesting because California has 130,000 cases, 4,600 deaths. But when you see the news from AMC, then you start to understand there's probably some lobbying going on here behind the scenes because AMC lost $2.2 billion for the first quarter, which ended on March 31st. It's about almost $21 per share on their stock, which is massive. So I think you're sensing that there's a lot of movie chains and movie theater companies that want to find a way to open their theaters, open their doors, and get people in those theaters to try to make some money. But 25% of an audience, 100 people, and how many of them are really going to get refreshments? You start to ask these questions of like, is it worth it? But maybe this is a soft rollout, what they like to call a soft opening, before they do the big openings in July, with Tenet still scheduled to go on July 17th, even though my friend Jeff Snyder over at Collider thinks he has sources telling him it's going to be delayed. But for right now, that's what they're planning. So guys, do you think it's too early? Do you think this actually makes sense on the business side of things to do a soft rollout and then hit the bricks, work out all the kinks so you can hit the bricks, hit it out of the park when it opens in July, when it fully opens in July?
I mean, I think a soft opening is absolutely a good idea. I mean, most restaurants, most stores, theme parks, they do that when they're having to open something new. Like they want to have a dry run with employees, with friends and family. So I do think that is a really smart choice. I mean, we were talking about this the other day. It's like, okay, just because they can open doesn't mean they're going to.
Right.
On the 12th. And also, what are they going to show? Because are they going to throw up Invisible Man, which was in the theaters for a month, and now most people, if they wanted to see it on VOD, they probably have. Are they going to start just showing classic movies, classic Marvel movies, 80s movies? I mean, I'm excited to get back into a movie theater, and with the social distancing guidelines as they've been laid out, for me personally, that is a dream. I love not having anybody around me except the people that I know. But as we've seen this week, as there have been reports of some spikes in coronavirus happening. It's like, God, I hope we don't open just to have to close again.
Yeah,
that's my hope.
Yeah, Mike.
I mean, look, I think we are in the process of trying to figure out what this reopening of the country looks like. And I do think, this is something that does need to happen. And I think that, I think there's a good chance that, as a lot of people are saying, we may be closing things down again. I think that there's going to be a lot of starts and stops. I think that we're figuring this out as we go. And I think that for the movie industry and for the movie theater chain industry particularly, like a lot of businesses, like they're hurting. And this is a constant balance that we're going to be living with for the foreseeable future, which is public health and safety plus economic growth and stability. And that back and forth, it's not saying that one is more valuable. It's not saying that it's more important to have business than to have sick people. But as we continue to learn more about the coronavirus, as we hopefully work towards having a vaccine, figuring out how to safely and socially distantly still open up businesses so that things can be happening is important. And I do think, as we talked about, I think that the soft opening, kind of as Shannon said, there is let's work out the kinks, let's make sure we know what we're doing here. I think there's also a level of comfortability. I think, as we all discussed prior to this, whether it is showing classic movies they know people love to see on the big screen, like whatever it is, I think getting people comfortable over the next month or so with the idea of going to the movies is just gearing everybody up for Tenet and Mulan and Black Widow and everything that is supposed to be coming out subsequently, because they want people in there. And I think if you were to open up the theaters the day that Tenet came out, you're going to have the same reaction that a lot of people are having as probably they're listening to this, which is, I'm kind of in the Shannon camp of, tell me what to do. Tell me where to sit. I will wear the mask. I will do whatever. I want to sit in a movie theater and watch a movie. Like I feel, but I know that I have a more, I'm more comfortable going out and doing that stuff. Some people aren't. And so in that initial few weeks of opening, there's still going to be a ton of people that are like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going in. You're not going to catch me anywhere near a movie theater. But after people have been going to a movie for a week and then 2 weeks and then 3 weeks, by the time Tenet comes out, you go, okay, well, people have been going. I talked to 5 friends who went. They said it felt safe to them. I feel more comfortable. So I think this is just a slow roll to get people used to it, which is, I think, what a lot of business is doing right now. I haven't gone out, I'm here in West Hollywood and restaurants are open. Like restaurants have been opening up.
Yes, they are.
your people are socially distantly, sitting every other table, no menus in your hand, somebody holds it up for you, like all the different rules that they're going through to make sure that it's safe. But I've been, walking the dog, marching and protesting or wherever, and you see people sitting in restaurants. I still haven't gone yet, but it's the same logic of a week from now, 2 weeks from now, as people have been doing it, I can easily see myself going, hey, you guys want to get together and talk about Geek Buddies at Wood Ranch at the Grove? They opened. We can go sit there. There'll be, and I think that it's just getting people comfortable is kind of where we're at right now. And now to your guys' point, it's going to be a real shame if we get everybody comfortable and everybody goes out and then we have a huge spike and just shut back down again, which is definitely a possibility. So, man, we are living in the upside down. Like there are no rules and nobody knows what's going to happen. And as we have learned in the past several weeks, like who knows what else is going to come along and throw another curveball into getting back to a semblance. I don't want to say getting back to normal because I think that we're at a place of life where maybe we can do better than normal in a lot of ways. But I think getting back to being out in the world and social and moving things forward again.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of in the minority on this on the show because I'm in no rush to go back to a movie theater. I'm not. I mean, maybe because I've been watching movies since I was a child and I've watched them for decades and I've kind of, I've got the experience. I know what's there. And I've still been getting
Wait a minute. Are you implying that Shannon and I have not been watching movies since childhood?
From what I understand, you guys just started a decade ago watching movies. No, but I guess I'm just trying to say
you've been watching movies your whole life. Shannon and I, we're so new to this. We're just excited to get in the theater.
We didn't get them in Florida until the new millennium.
What is the black and white? What is the black and white? I guess I'm just saying, like I've seen movie theater. I've been in for decades, so it's like for me, it's to miss out on a year of not going to the movie theater would be just fine with me, to be honest with you. And I've been getting the early screenings of films, thankfully, because of my connections with publicists and the studios to review on the channel. And look, I've got. Oh no! I don't want to hear it from Backyard Haircut over there. I don't want to hear this little off-camera shot there. But no, I mean, I'm okay with it because I've been like I just watched The King of Staten Island. They sent it to me early to review it because I interviewed the writer, and it was just perfectly fine watching it on my television. And I think pretty much I just rewatched Endgame the other day on my television. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually kind of fine just sitting at home and watching it. I know there are, the study that came out a few weeks ago, 70% of people surveyed in that study said they were just fine with never going to a movie theater again and just watching films at their house. So we'll see what happens and how many people are in my camp, how many people are in your camp. I'm sure the box office and the dollars will show it. Because if Tenet, Mulan, if these films start coming out and their box office is half of what was predicted, and not because of distancing, but because there's just people not coming, then I think that's the studios. It's a wake-up call for the studios, and they're going to have to adjust their rollout plans to include video, VOD day of, for people who want to stay home and recoup their money. That Trolls World Tour thing, it made more in 2 weeks than the first film did in 3 months. So it's like that's something that you have to kind of factor into this situation. And I think we're rushing. And but this side of airplanes, movie theaters are the last place I want to go to because of the cesspool of unhygienic Americans that walk into those things on a normal day, let alone during a coronavirus pandemic, especially when some of them don't want to wear masks anymore, think it's all BS. I mean, I was driving. You said the restaurants are open. Mike, I drove through West Hollywood. I texted you guys about it. There weren't no separation between tables. They were literally on top of each other with no masks. And I was losing my mind. I'm like, we're in Los Angeles and you people are acting like you're at a pool party in Oklahoma. And it was frustrating as hell for me. And that tells me that it doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on. People are tired of wearing the masks. People are tired of being told to stay home. People are tired of it. So they're going to rebel in little ways. And those rebellions are going to lead to a possible second wave. And that's what concerns me. And I, who have avoided it so far, do not want to get caught up in a second wave of this because I really had to go see Bill and Ted Face the Music in a room full of crowded in a theater a crowded theater full of people. That's my
Shannon Shannon and I will send you photos from the theater.
And I'll send you photos from my television a week before it comes out saying, hey, it's fun. Go see it, guys.
Here's what I'll say. I mean, I think that I would say two things. Like, one, and I've said this to a lot of friends. I've had similar conversations to this. Like, there's a no shame game here. Like, everybody should be safe. Everybody should practice social distancing rules. Everybody should be wearing masks. So I'm not saying that you should just be like, fuck it and do what you want. But as businesses open, as we are told that we are allowed to do this, that we are allowed to do that, there's going to be a huge variety in people's reactions to that, because everyone has a huge reaction to how they feel about getting sick, about germs, about their fear of corona, about everything. So there's going to be an interesting social dynamic as your social group that you used to go do everything with. 3 people are going to want to go to a movie. 3 people are like, I'm not touching a movie theater. 3 people are like, let's go get a drink, or let's go to this restaurant so we can sit and have a meal together. 3 people aren't going to want to. And I'm not into like shit. Like I totally respect that. Like I completely respect you not wanting to go see movies. I'm excited for a day that we can all see movies together.
Yes, me too.
But I think that a big piece of making this all happen smoothly, in addition to being safe, practicing social distancing, is just respecting everybody's comfort levels, because I think there's going to be a wide variety. And I think that the people that are, pretending like nothing is wrong and actively flaunting it and not wearing masks and going to bars and just being around like that, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I think being smart and following the rules, there's still going to be a wide variety. For me, it's less about wanting to see it when it just comes out. I think I've said this before on the show. If not, I've certainly said it to the two of you. Sitting in a movie theater, when I think back on the entirety of my life, is like, that's my happy place. Like, I think every time in college, out here in Los Angeles, you have a bad day at work, you're stressed about a paper you have due. Like, anytime that I've had anxiety, stress, just been depressed, just not known what to do with myself, gone through a breakup, my place that I go to sort of turn it all off is I love sitting in a movie theater, sitting with some popcorn, watching a story unfold on the big screen. So for me, it's much more of a like, with everything going on in the world, I would love nothing more than to escape to a movie theater and just sit and watch something happen. And so, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how this all goes. And to your point, I think the box office of Tenet, the box office of Mulan, the box office of Black Widow, all of these, it's going to be really, really telling and really interesting as far as how things go moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And also at least in LA or California, correct me if I'm wrong, but the guidelines right now are 25% of a theater or 100 people. So inevitably,
whichever one is less.
So inevitably, that is going to affect box office. I think an earlier VOD rollout is inevitable. But yeah, I agree with Mike. I hope we can get back to that place where people are following the rules and being respectful of each other.
Yeah, I do think. I think they'll take that into account. I think that what you'll see is when Wonder Woman, Black Widow, whatever comes out, they'll say, we are anticipating, if you were going to anticipate $150 million opening weekend, you cut that into a fourth and say, okay, we were expecting this, we're now expecting this. Yeah. And if you get that, then that as much as theaters were allowed to, they were full. So you can say, okay, look, these were, in terms of where we're at and what we can sell, these were sold out. And that will be telling. If you're far below that, if you weren't even able to get that, I think that's gonna be the difference. Like, they're definitely not gonna make the box office they would if you can only sell X number of seats. But that's the part that's gonna be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm already developing movie cubes that I try to sell into movie theaters, where you can install just huge plastic cubes and you could go inside, sit in that plastic cube and watch movies and not be touched by anybody.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Mikey. Movie cubes, movie QBS. There you go, movie cubes. Anyway, all right, let's move on to our last story. We'll jump into our big thing. Who's got this one, Mikey?
This is me. Kind of a follow-up to a story we talked about earlier. As most people know, if you're a fan of the CW and DC Comics and the Arrowverse, Ruby Rose very suddenly exited Batwoman between their season 1 and their season 2, and nobody was quite sure what was going to happen post that. And That's been clarified a little bit. CW has announced that they will not be replacing Ruby Rose's character, Kate Kane, with another actress. So Kate Kane, who is Batwoman, will not be returning in Batwoman. Instead, what they are going to do is replace her with a new character, a brand new character named, I believe it's Ryan
Wilder.
Ryan Wilder. Ryan Wilder, brand new character. She's likable, messy, a little goofy and untamed, with no one in her life to keep her on track, is kind of the description. So a very different kind of character than Kate Kane is. Definitely still an LGBTQ character, which I know is important to a lot of people, myself included. And another thing they said, that the showrunner, Caroline Dries, just said in a statement that was released Wednesday of this week. So as you guys are watching it yesterday, if you're watching this when it comes out, as a lesbian who's been working as a writer for the past 15 years, I'm well aware of the bury your gays trope, and I have no interest in participating in it. That's why it's important to me as a showrunner to clarify any misinformation there is about Kate Kane and recasting Batwoman. Like you, I love Kate Kane. She's the reason I wanted to do the show. We will not erase her. In fact, her disappearance will be one of the mysteries of season 2. I don't want to give away any of our surprises, but to all our devoted fans, please know that the LGBTQ plus justice is at the very core of what Batwoman is, and we have no intention of abandoning that. So for anybody that doesn't know, the whole bury your gays trope is something that happens a lot of times in a lot of television shows, where when you have a gay character, or specifically when a gay character gets a love interest, they almost instantly die. It happens on Walking Dead. It's happened on other shows. It happens all the time.
I have to explore that. That's interesting.
If a gay person gets a relationship in a genre show, they go down faster than a red shirt in Star Trek. It is crazy. So with them struggling to do what they were doing with Kate Kane, they didn't want to just say, oh, by the way, she died between season 1 and season 2, because that would fall into that trap. So this is interesting. There's been a lot of commentary in both directions, people applauding this and people thinking this is the worst decision they could have ever made. What do you guys think about this?
I think it's a fun decision because they'd written already 2 episodes for the second season, and Caroline Dry also said that earlier. She said it kind of sucked that we had to go back and but then again we thought this was the right decision. And so now you kind of open the door for more storylines, right? This new character has to come in and reestablish new relationships with your already presented characters, already fleshed out characters from the first season. So that's going to be interesting. Who is she going to get along with? Who is she not going to get along with? Who's going to be on her side? Not on her side? Friction, not friction? What's her path? And what Caroline also said was that this is going to be someone who's maybe a bit too green to be Batwoman. So that strikes me as that brings to mind Mazzucchelli's Year One with Batman, how he was figuring out how to be Batman. So that's a fascinating storyline as well to explore. Plus, it makes sense business-wise. She's younger. The CW audience skews younger. Cast someone younger. Play the Ryan Wilder character. Plus, I like the fact that it's Ryan Wilder. That's a very is that male or female name? It can go either way. That's smart overall. And so for me, I like this idea. Plus, it allows the fact that maybe if bridges get mended down the road, and by the way, there's no real thing out there that says they have a burnt bridge here between Ruby Rose and the production company. Maybe there's stuff behind the scenes. I don't know anything about that. But if the bridges get amended, then maybe down the road, Kat Kane comes back in some format to guide her or to help her in a situation or whatever. We've seen that happen. So before already with Supergirl having Superman initially in the first season through text or messaging, helping her a little bit, and then eventually actually showing up. So this is all possible, and I think it's a smart move. And you kind of go you know what? We didn't do her dirty. We didn't replace it like Don Cheadle and Terrence Howard. We just went this other direction, and let's explore what this could look like. So I think it's exciting, to be honest. And it's not like superheroes haven't been replaced by other people playing them in the comics before. So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I have no dog in the fight here, as the only time I saw that show was the Arrow kind of backdoor pilot that it had.
Oh yeah,
the pilot, and I saw her on Crisis. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know after it was there was talk that Ben Affleck was going to leave when the DCU was still going. Are they going to bring Dick Grayson in and have him be Batman? I don't know. I mean, I kind of see the usefulness of just saying, you know what, Kate Kane, we're recasting Kate Kane. Kate Kane from here on in, Kate Kane is Batwoman. She is going to be Batwoman from here on in. And at least from what I read, and again, I didn't do any deep dive on this, but from what I read, none of the fans were up in arms that Ruby Rose left.
Exactly.
I mean, so I don't see the harm in just recasting the character. That being said, the points that John made, I think, are very valid. Like, you have a chance to cast another LGBT performer, and skewing a little younger, I'm like, that's smart too. There are a bunch of positives that can come out of it. The way that I kind of watch my stuff is I would prefer them just recast the role. I was a fan of like, hey, why can't John Hamm come in and be old Bruce Wayne? But that's me. But again, I have no dog in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm of two minds about it. I think that there's a lot of people for whom Kate Kane specifically is a very, very important character. Her journey, the way she came out of the closet, the way she came to becoming Batwoman, like that specific story, that specific character is very important. And so to have one of the most prominent LGBTQ plus characters kind of make that leap to television and be the lead of her own show, and then through circumstances be set aside for a new character, definitely rubs people the wrong way, and I get it. And I think the comparison would be if we finally got a Batman CW show where it was a younger Bruce Wayne who was Batman and he was interacting with the Flash and the Arrow team and everybody else, and every Batman fan was super excited about Bruce Wayne, and this exact same thing happened, saying that Bruce Wayne wasn't going to be Batman anymore and this brand new character was going to come in and take the cowl. There is a lot of straight dudes who would lose their absolute shit at that. Who on the Shannon camp, who would say, look,
like dudes around the board. It doesn't have to be straight. I think dudes overall.
Dudes around the board. Fair. Dudes around the board. But it is like, so I think that the comparison is, I think for a lot of people who don't, to Shannon's point, have a dog in the fight, who don't have feelings about Kate Kane, kind of go, yeah, I can go either way. Right. Putting yourself in the, hey guys, Clark Kent isn't going to be Superman. Hey, Bruce Wayne isn't going to be Batman, kind of gives you the enormity of making this decision. That being said, like most things, most recently the thing that came to mind was Ahsoka Tano. A lot of times when you add a new element to something that people love, they are going to hate it. I think this is Batwoman, the team on Batwoman, this is their game to win or lose. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people that are saying this is a horrible decision. There's a lot of people that are saying this is a good decision. It is all in the execution. If Ryan Wilder becomes a beloved character, if the actress nails it, if the character is fun, if they weave a great story here and this character becomes an awesome follow-up to Batwoman, and particularly because, John, I kind of agree with you. I don't think there's anything that says the mystery of what happened to Kate Kane is a big arc of the season. And in the last 2 episodes, Ruby Rose comes back as Kate Kane and sort of gives the handoff. Maybe, like even if she doesn't show up beyond that, I think having her still exist out there so that Kate Kane is still Kate Kane. If they nail this, they can win it. And I can see Ryan Wilder showing up in her own comic book in DC. Stranger things have happened. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And it'll either be they did their best, but that was probably a mistake, or holy shit, everybody is standing for Ryan Wilder. Ryan Wilder. So we'll see.
Or Joan Wilder. Yeah, Ryan Wilder. No, Ryan Wilder.
Joan Wilder?
Joan Wilder?
Joan Wilder?
No, I think you brought up a really excellent point I hadn't thought about, Michael. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, Shannon and I, probably dollars and donuts, we won't watch this new Batwoman with Ryan Wilder, but maybe we'll give it a chance, see what it's like. But the people who actually are invested in this universe, in the Kat Kane storyline, you're right. Like from the comics into this, if it's a very important character to them. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd be like, I hated when Azrael took over for Batman. I don't like anybody wearing the cowl but Bruce Wayne. I don't. I just feel an aversive reaction. Now, am I going to go on Twitter and go upset about it? No, but I will not support it by not buying those comics. That's how I show my support. I don't need to go crazy on Twitter about it. It's just my own personal thing. So I respect if some people are upset they're not going to get that Kat Kane storyline in a prominent show like this that was very much hyped up by the CW because of the LGBTQ representation that they were doing in this. So, yeah, it's an excellent point I hadn't thought about.
conversely to that point, I'll give you the flip side of that, which is I think I said this before, I refused to read Miles Morales Spider-Man #1 by Brian Michael Bendis for months because I was like, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It wasn't a race thing. It wasn't anything. It was just same thing. I'm like, Bruce Wayne is Batman. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So the fact that they killed Peter Parker, I was like, I can't believe they did that. I don't know about this new thing. And then people were like, you've got to read this. You've got to read this. And I think I maybe made it a page and a half, 2 pages in, 3 pages into the Spider-Man comic where I was like, shit, this is great. God damn it, Brian Michael Bendis did it again. But like Miles Morales, that Miles Morales is the goal for what the Batwoman team wants to do, which is take away an iconic character and their backstory and say, this person is not doing this anymore.
Right.
And create somebody that is so interesting and so dynamic and becomes so beloved that they rise up and become a hugely prominent person. Like Miles Morales is as much Spider-Man now to me and to a lot of people as Peter Parker is. So if it's really, that's the goal. Like the goalpost for them is make Ryan Wilder Miles Morales and you got to win on your hands.
And there have been examples of when characters who were created for film or television, when they do become incredibly popular and they make the transition to comics, like Agent Coulson or Calder from Young Justice. I mean, if Ryan Wilder,
Harley Quinn,
right? Great points. Yeah,
I said Calder because I got Aquaman.
Yeah. I mean, on the Harley Quinn Calder popularity poll, but you do you.
You're gonna get some Aqua hate on Twitter, Michael.
Enjoy that tidal wave. Hey-oh, that's a tsunami of hate. Yeah, I mean, the last thing I would like to add to this is because I'm the kind of because I like this even more so because I didn't like the Terrence Howard switch, and I still don't like it, and I'll never like it. And I like Don Cheadle as an actor; he's a phenomenal actor. Love him and everything he does. But you took away the one guy that could call Tony Stark out on his bullshit for real, and Terrence Howard's energy was that. And I do think a little bit behind the scenes, Robert Downey's like, you know what? I kind of want to stand on my own. I don't want somebody constantly questioning me, take away the spotlight. I would not be surprised. It's obviously it was a wise decision because we all fell in love with him, and what happens to him in Endgame is incredibly heartbreaking. And it's built up through all those movies because he's allowed to stand on his own. If you had a guy next to him who was always like, yeah, but Tony, remember when you banged all those girls? Remember when you did you smoke, all the stuff I had to pull you out of? Then it's a different energy, right? And I think Terrence Howard wanted to play a different version of War Machine that was just as powerful as Tony Stark and effective and able to call him out on his bullshit. So the switch will always bother me. But I understand what it was done, but it doesn't mean that I have to like it. So yeah, I like that they didn't recast Kat Kane and they've gone with this new character. And it's a different energy too here because I imagine they're not going to cast a character that's going to radiate that leadership vibe they wanted Kat Kane to have in that crossover.
It sounds like they're doing the exact opposite.
Yeah, they'll put her maybe kind of figuring her out as it goes along. And that'll be a journey to watch if they get this right, Mike. You're right. If they get this, it's on them to win or lose on this one. Because if they get this right, 5 years from now, we're talking about Ryan Wilder's progression through the series to the point where she is leading the entire Arrowverse. That could be interesting as well. Yeah. So we'll see. All right. Well, that's our Geek News items for this week. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll jump into the rest of the Geek Buddies right after this. Now we get to hear Shannon go. He's actually going to go pee. He's literally did he just jump? Okay. Now he's back now. He's adding time. And we're back. All right, Shannon, what happened there? Where'd you go?
I ran to the living room because I think I figured out why I was echoing. So I switched my earbuds.
Oh, there we go.
Can you tell the difference already?
Yes.
All right.
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
But thanks for trying.
I appreciate you trying. It's good to see a little League scamper. All right, well, let's move on to our main topic today. You know, so much has been happening in the world with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter protest and people coming online now feeling even stronger about their points of views about racism, about stopping any kind of, I don't know, bias or prejudice towards people of people who are gay, people who are trans. And this is all kind of conspiring over the last few days to put in an interesting bunch of characters in the same bowl of soup here who are suffering backlashes for their comments and reaping the consequences for their comments, either present or in the past. Mike, do you want to lead this one talking about the J.K. Rowling situation? I defer to you, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, yeah. Do you want me to like tee up all three, or just are we going JK first? Like,
no, tee up all three, and then slide into JK, and we'll talk about the other ones.
We were discussing what we were going to talk about this week, and kind of obviously JK Rowling's tweets about her transphobic tweets. Her opinion on trans people was kind of the first thing that came up. We'll dive into that and get into the specifics in a second. Yeah. But then right on the heels of that, Hartley Sawyer, the actor who plays Elongated Man on Flash, was let go of the Flash, will not be returning because of a bunch of tweets that he had sent a few years back that were deemed misogynist, racist, homophobic, transphobic. There was a bunch of tweets. So there was a bunch of things. And then as we were discussing those things, as of us recording this on Wednesday, HBO Max made the decision based on a op-ed in the LA Times that John Ridley, the director, had written, and decided to remove Gone with the Wind from HBO Max for a period of time. He wrote a big op-ed. It was really interesting, kind of saying that with everything going on, Gone with the Wind is sort of the ultimate movie that sort of glorifies the South and has tons of racist overtones, and that maybe HBO Max should consider taking it down at least for a little bit and doing something different with it. And so that blew up. Like, I woke up to 1,000 tweets about Gone with the Wind, which was very confusing until I dug into it. So what we decided to talk about today is cancel culture, is the idea of, are we allowed to still like Harry Potter? Do we have to hate Harry Potter? Should we be taking stuff down? How should we be taking stuff down? How do we navigate this world where we are all becoming more aware of what our words mean, of what of the differing viewpoints in the world, and how our entertainment doesn't always reflect that. And so it's a lot to tackle. So we'll see as much as we can do. Should I just dive into some specifics on J.K. Rowling first? Let's start there. Okay, so J.K. Rowling has gotten in trouble over this in the past. She's definitely had some tweets that were deemed transphobic in the past. She decided, for reasons that none of us will ever know, that in the midst of everything else happening in the past few weeks with Black Lives Matter and protesting and everything else, that she was going to double down on those comments. Okay. There was an article that kind of got her going that was about menstruation, something none of the three of us deal with, but everyone is aware of what it is. And the article referred to people who menstruate as opposed to women. And that was the beginning of what set J.K. Rowling off. She got really upset that they did not define people who menstruate as women, and then doubled down saying that sex is sex. You can't change it. This is something that is horrible. And this is something that goes directly against what most people in the trans community believe. What people in the trans community believe is that when you are born trans, you are basically a woman in a man's body. Like, you identify as a woman, you feel like a woman, and any changes you make to your physical body are sort of catching you up to that you are what you are. And J.K. Rowling does not believe this. And that was very, very apparent. And she has been since sort of run through the coals on Twitter. People are coming for her, and not just on the transphobic stuff, but that has unearthed a lot of people's feelings about a lot of issues in the Harry Potter books that, as beloved as they are deemed problematic. Whether that be the depiction of the small hook-nosed goblins who run all the money in the wizarding world as seen as somewhat anti-Semitic, whether naming your only Asian character Cho Chang, or having a race of house elves who are living to serve the wizards and seem super content with it. So there's been a ton of things that have come up, and she's been dealing with all that. And as of us recording this on Wednesday, she just recently came out this morning with a very, very long essay trying to explain her feelings on the trans community. And it is not going great for her currently on Twitter. Her extended explanation does not seem to be doing anything for a lot of people except reaffirming a lot of transphobic ideas that she is espousing. So that is the J.K. Rowling of it all. And that has led to a lot of things happening. A lot of people saying that they've always hated Harry Potter, people who currently loved Harry Potter feeling like maybe they shouldn't love Harry Potter, or people who still want to love the art despite the artist. And this has included Daniel Radcliffe, who's done a lot of work with the Trevor Project coming out and standing up for the trans community and saying, if you did find joy in the Harry Potter books, in the love of friendship and the acceptance that is there, that is great and that shouldn't be taken away from you. And a lot of people were really glad that Harry Potter himself stood up to say that. So that is, in a nutshell, the J.K. Rowling of it all.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting situation, because having worked at the park, I've seen the power of that series of books. I've seen the power of that world and how it's affected people and how it moves people, how it takes people who feel disenfranchised, who feel out of the mainstream, who don't feel normal. And as much as we like to create this idea that the nerds have taken over the world, there are still people within that community who feel excommunicated from their own community as well. They feel out of place from what they see in TV, what they see in the ads, what they see in the world themselves. And I've seen what the power of Harry Potter can do, how it emotionally moves people, how it makes people happy and gives them a place to run to. Hell, I mean, to be honest with you, that's why I fought for the job, is because we all three went to see it in Orlando, and I was in a particularly down point in my life, and walking into that land, that the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios in Orlando, I felt just peace, this happiness, this joy, and this desire to just get an apartment and live there for the rest of my life. And it really affected me at that time. So going and getting the job was my way of like paying it forward every time I did my show, trying to pay it forward to whoever might be in the audience who liked Harry Potter or loved Harry Potter, and conveying that. So I know it's got the power to do great things in the world. It's sad to see the JK do this, go out in this, go this route, because you're right, Michael. This is a bit, and you can look at it in a subway, like it's kind of a little bit of white privilege. And you think in the middle of all this stuff that this is the argument you need to have at this moment. Like, if this is the time you need to tweet something like this without, like, read the room, read the world. Don't even read the room, read the world. Nobody at this point wants to hear that bullshit from you, especially because you've already, kind of gotten away with a world, as you stated, Mike, with goblins that look a certain way, with house elves that act a certain. Hell, there's no effing Latinos at all in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Kiss my ass for that. And the Cho Chang situation, all of that, she's been able to escape. And my argument towards those people who love Harry Potter, and this is the one you want to die on, not the other ones, I guess it's all personal. But she is problematic. Now, I'm not saying she's racist. I'm saying she's problematic. There is a difference in the line there. But what she's created has done a lot of good in the world. And certainly Eddie Redmayne came out also, along with Daniel Radcliffe, and kind of put her on blast for her comments, and tried to get people to embrace the world again. But then she dropped that essay, and in that essay, she is absolutely unapologetic, paints herself as the victim of harassment, and then kisses her own butt by talking about the mounds and mounds of supportive emails and letters that she got. I think we have to start looking at this as a person who is falling off the deep end. To be honest with you, as intelligent as she may be, we've seen people of certain intelligence kind of go off the deep end because they just start going down a path and there's no way back. And she can hide it with, I was writing a novel, or I'm exploring this. She can hide it behind all that crap. But the timing of these tweets, the timing of the last 2 years of her comments and her tweets and her liking certain things, it has to be called into question.
Yeah. Having read a few of the things that she's talked about over the years, I don't know, man. I think when you are, as successful as she is, and you are surrounded by so many people who they just adore you, that maybe you don't have a good sounding board for the things that you should express and the things that you should say. I mean, at some point, I think when you're an artist and you put a work of art out there, that art stops being yours. It becomes the audience's. And so I don't think anyone that's sort of questioning whether or not they should like Harry Potter anymore. I mean, you can't argue what you took from it. But in terms of her, I mean, yeah, I can't do more than just echo what John said. Is like, man, read the room. Like this is not about you right now.
Yeah, I think sadly, one place where I think I might disagree a little bit, although I wish I agreed more, is that I don't know that it is her going off the deep end. I think that sadly for the trans community, they have a really, really hard time. I mean, transphobia is still something that is a huge issue, particularly for Black trans women. There's still so much confusion, so much fear, so much hate that they deal with on a daily basis that trumps what I, as a white cisgender gay man, deals with on a regular basis. So I think that what she's saying is, stuff that a lot of people who don't know a trans person, who don't know the trans community as well, it sounds almost it sounds like it makes sense to them. Like when she says, look, you're either a man or a woman, and that can't change, and no matter what else you do, that is true. That a lot of people would go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. I get that. And that's the scary part. It's not someone going off the deep end. It's someone who's saying things that are purposely there to confuse the issue, purposely there to sort of make trans people sound different or other than. It's no different than what gay people dealt with for years, saying, oh, well, you chose to be gay. You weren't born that way. You chose to be gay. And once you know someone, you guys known me for years, you're like, you were always gay.
I didn't know.
Very clear. It was very clear.
I had to ask people about it.
John had to ask. He got a little confused. But I think that, and then to double down on that statement in her essay, saying things like, any guy who wants to be a woman can be a woman now, and they're going to come into bathrooms and attack women, even though there is no proof of any case of a trans person ever doing that. That's just feeding into fear. And then to kind of sort of add to it in her writerly way in her essay, saying, you're gonna hurt the women's rights movements just because you want to put on a dress and wear some expensive Jimmy Choos. I mean, that is just straight up transphobic. So I think I don't think she's going off the deep end. I think she feels very strongly about this, and I think that that's what the problem is. I mean, the reason that the term TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminist, exists is because she's not the only one who thinks these things. And I think that's what the danger is. She's not the only one who thinks it, but out of all the people in the world, she might have one of the biggest platforms. And for someone who wrote a book that was ostensibly supposed to be about the inherent racism that certain pureblood wizards had against muggles and mudbloods and everything else, to kind of take this stance, it hurts a lot of people, particularly people in the trans community who do love Harry Potter. So I think it's a shame. I do think that Shannon, what you said is true, which is if Harry Potter has given you comfort, if the world of Hogwarts and wizarding and all of that, if you identify as a Gryffindor or a Hufflepuff or a Slytherin or a Ravenclaw, I think that you shouldn't let this take it away from you. If you do, if you can never look at Harry Potter again, if you are done with it, like, absolutely, you're right. I think that that is true. I think that just as much as, whether Walt Disney was anti-Semitic or not, whether a lot of creators, there's a ton of literature and art in the world that is filled with problematic people. And my personal opinion, and by no means does anybody have to stick to this, is I'm still going to take what I love from Harry Potter, but, and I think this gets into the Gone with the Wind conversation, I'm not going to shy away from the problematic nature of things. I'm not going to shy away from the problematic nature of the author. And I'm also not going to take, especially knowing what I know about her now, and not use that to reflect on the choices that she made, whether it be with goblins or Cho Chang or elves or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, you have to factor in. You have to, look at all of it. There's a line that gets crossed. You can forgive, and then eventually you're just like, well, no, this is a pattern here, We have to kind of take a look at it and see what the end result is going to be. And you're right, Mike, what you stress about the fact that she has such a large platform, it can be dangerous. It gives people who have this point of view now someone to point to and go, yeah, if she believes that, and look at how many followers and look what she did, look what she created. There must be something. There must be nothing wrong with that. There must be something good about what she's saying. And then people who have loved her and her story, right? I mean, I loved her story. This is a woman who was struggling to pay her bills, who was riding on a train on the dole, had a kid, like in a terrible situation in her life, and she fought to create something incredible, to move so many people and give so many people comfort. To have it kind of turned around, it is a shame. Is an incredible shame, and she seems to be doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this, and there's no pulling her. It seems to be no pulling her back from it at all. Because I'm sure every PR agent or whoever was on her team was like, "Please don't write this. Please don't write this. For the love of God, don't write this." And she's like, "Screw you! I can buy and get a bunch of new ones of you tomorrow or tonight. I'm going to write this, so and
I do think that it also does affect, because I think another piece of this is, how you feel about a work that was created that you loved or that meant a lot to you is one thing, but also whether you choose to continue to support that artist, I think is another big question. And I think that my feelings about Harry Potter are my feelings about Harry Potter. They've definitely shifted the more that I've learned and the more that I've read about what she said. Right. But I also think, although I may always hold Harry Potter in a certain place, I'm probably less likely to support her future endeavors now than I would have been before.
I think that's probably the way to go. I mean, we were just Steve and I were just reviewing that documentary, Be Water, the Bruce Lee documentary on ESPN, and one of the things he talks about, that philosophy of Be Water, is study something intensely, take what you need from it, and discard the rest. So the dedication of the Harry Potter franchise people have had, take the positive things that have really helped you in your life and discard the other stuff. And you don't have to support JK going forward. It doesn't deteriorate your love of Harry Potter. It doesn't, and it shouldn't. What was great there is still great there, regardless of what has happened with the author, because that author didn't just stay in that world of Harry Potter for the rest of her life. She moved on to do other things, or he moved on to do other things if there's other franchises you're into.
And then, so speaking of art being what it is, how do you feel? So we dive in. Do you want to dive into the Gone with the Wind of it all, Johnny?
Yeah. Because I mean, the Hartley thing is pretty simple. He wrote terrible tweets, should have been fired. And with the elongated man, they can just have him do a new face. This is my new face now. I'm Ralph Dibny. This is what I look like now. Shannon, I think you agree with that, right? You're an elongated man fan.
I do like Ralph Dibny, but at this point, I think it's probably better just to get rid of the character.
Oh, okay.
Because it's linked to Hartley Sawyer at this point. I think for this iteration of DC storytelling, best just to say goodbye to him.
Okay. Well,
yeah, and I think that words matter. It's like there's definitely, I've seen tweets about this, and I mean I didn't see a ton of tweets defending Hartley Sawyer, but there was the idea of it wasn't like there was an outpouring of support and people being upset about losing Ralph Dibny.
There weren't tweets from a Sartley Hoyer out there.
Well, I think that it's like, there's just he made these jokes a long time ago and they were meant to be jokes and whatever. And, it's like, all I can say to that is like, I'd have to check Twitter, but I'm pretty sure I don't think I've ever made a joke like that.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that was deemed something that he should blast out to everybody, whenever it was, kind of speaks to that's what we're fighting against right now, whether it be Black Lives Matter, whether it be LGBTQ rights, trans rights, whether it be misogyny and how we treat women, that there's an idea of he was just joking. It was locker room talk. It was fine. I'm like, well, first of all, don't put it on fucking Twitter. And second of all, it's not fine. I mean, these are the types of conversations we need to be having. And so I think it was probably the right call.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so Gone with the Wind.
Introduce it.
Listen, I'm no fan of this movie, never have been, and no surprise to me that other people are coming around to the problems with this movie. Talk about problematic and borderline racist. I don't 100% agree with John Ridley's point of view that is a racist movie. I think it is a movie set at a certain time based on a novel that was glorifying the South. Absolutely. But they're not go over there, stepping on black people's necks, for lack of a better image, or doing anything that you've heard, putting slaves in the steel, things that we saw in the Civil War. They're not doing that. But the treatment there, is not a positive treatment, even though, and this is what the difficult thing about this whole thing, Hattie McDaniel won the Oscar for her portrayal of, I think it's Mammy is the name of the character in that film. So it's a complicated situation because Clark Gable is,
every person who is going crazy on Twitter saying, how dare you? I love that everyone is pretending that the reason that they're upset about Gone with the Wind is that Hattie McDaniel won an Oscar. If you're
is that what they're hiding behind?
Yeah, if you're one of those people that is like, how dare you remove Gone with the Wind? Don't you know Hattie McDaniel won an Oscar? I've got news for you. You need to calm down. Like that is not that is not the reason.
No.
Oh, it just drives me crazy. But continue, please.
I agree. That's actually a terrible, terrible defense because, it is a character that's not shown as a proud black person. She's shown as a slave to that family, and Clark Gable, fantastic work in this movie from the 2 times I've seen it. But for Vivian Leigh, I will take her work in Streetcar Named Desire or about 10 other films before I refer back to her work in this film. It is a film that if it goes away, we don't lose anything about our film history at all, other than this is still, adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing film ever made. That's the only moniker to it.
But also, and this is where I think this needs to just be like, everybody needs to take a step back. First of all, it is the highest grossing, it's one of the most successful movies of all time. It is absolutely a part. I do think that if Gone with the Wind was erased tomorrow, that is a piece of Hollywood history that would be erased. Here's the thing, though. Nobody is talking about erasing it at all.
Yeah.
Even John Ridley, here, I pulled it up. Let me be clear. I don't believe in censorship. I don't think Gone with the Wind should be relegated to a vault in Burbank. I would just ask, after a respectful amount of time has passed, that the film be reintroduced to the HBO Max platform, along with other films that give a more broad-based and complete picture of what slavery and the Confederacy truly were. And in point of fact, that is exactly 100% what HBO Max said they were doing. They took it down right now because things are kind of in a big moment of social upheaval
and change,
hopefully. And they're going to put it back up for all those Gone with the Wind stands out there. And they're going to include a conversation about what that movie is, what is problematic about it, what it makes other people feel like when they watch it. And I think that's the real key here, is that the Megyn Kellys of the world who are taking this ball and running with it and saying, well, now we have to get rid of every movie that has ever offended everybody, and are going crazy on Twitter saying that we're going to do all of these things. The point is that no one is even asking for that. What people are asking for, what he's asking for, and what other people are asking for is, and this, whether it be the J.K. Rowling piece of this that we're talking about or whatever, which is, art exists, art happened. And this is another thing that was trending this morning, throwing something under the rug and pretending it never happened, like Disney did with Song of the South, probably also not the correct answer, because those things happened, you made them, they speak to a time and place, and clearly sweeping everything under the rug and pretending that we don't have a problem with racism in our country has not worked out so great for us.
Right. Yeah.
The way to handle this is to hold these things up and say, cool. A lot of people love this movie. As a movie, take any kind of what it's about out of it. It's a well-made movie. It has good performances. It won a lot of awards. It's a piece of filmmaking history. Here is why this is a problem. And the people that are so upset today about how dare you do this to Gone with the Wind, HBO Max is bowing down to censorship, blah, 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 are trying to move past this important piece of it, which is we need to have a discussion about this movie. It's not enough to just have it be up there and be like, Gone with the Wind is great. Gone with the Wind is great with a really, really, really big asterisk next to it.
Yeah.
And that discussion has to happen. And the fact that when somebody even asked to have that discussion, it's met with the sky is falling, how dare you, by a whole bunch of white people, pretty much speaks for itself.
who are placating their base to keep their views and their support and their money in their pocket, not a genuine bone in their body, in my opinion. Go ahead, Shan.
No, I mean, I don't have a terrible amount to add. I mean, like you, John, I have no love for this movie. This movie, I mean, I grew up watching this movie because my sisters liked it because of the Scarlett, Rhett, Ashley love story.
Right.
I didn't like it because it was 4 hours, and that was 4 hours that they had the television. I won't pretend to say the problematic presentation of the South is why I didn't like it. But yeah, I mean, presenting something with the proper context right now is very, very important. And as you said, like HBO Max has said, it will return, but they're going to reevaluate how they present it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and
I think go ahead, Johnny.
I know in the history, the overreactions of people are standard stuff you're seeing nowadays, but I like that a lot of people were rebelling finally over the last few days, couple of weeks at these overreactions to things. I love it. I love that people are finally calling out these people on their bullshit. Tucker Carlson, all these idiots who are using their platforms to placate a fervent fan base so that they can still afford their houses and their cars and their style of living. And they don't actually believe a damn word they're saying. This is the stuff that doesn't remove their responsibility of saying it. I want them to make that very, very clear. They're still responsible for the words that are coming out of their mouths. I'm just saying they're only doing it to get these people riled up so they can keep selling their books or selling their crap or keep their advertisers making money. I think I love that people are pushing back about that because that overreaction stuff is purposely meant to cover over what's actually really happening, to not actually deal with what's happening, to kind of obscure the actual issue that's happening here. And that is rational-minded people are saying, hey, this isn't good. We should pull it down. Let's put it up with a disclaimer. I think they should do Breakfast at Tiffany's as well. I think any of those films that have problematic racist portrayals of people need to absolutely put up stuff in there. And hey, this also extends to gay portrayals. This also extends to Latino portrayals, Asian portrayals, any portrayals you've got on there. There should be a disclaimer up there to explain, hey, this was at this time. We thought this was correct, blah, blah, blah. You know, like those racist Looney Tunes cartoons, some of those Disney cartoons. There's problematic stuff all over the place. There's nothing wrong with as being a rational company or human being and being like, okay, we understand that. We're going to put these disclaimers up and then say where they can go to get more information about these kinds of things. There are plenty of foundations or educational websites that have been set up to educate people about these issues so they have a more well-rounded approach to it. And it doesn't have to remove your love of the movie or the TV show or the cartoon or animated series. It's just telling you, look at this completely, the full picture of it. That's all.
Yeah, and like I think the thing that really kind of irks me about all of it is because I've been talking about this a lot this week, is when I think about the American history that we were taught in school, which actually legitimately erases most of the horrible things that white people have done. Like the fact that it took Watchmen to get me to learn what the Tulsa race riots were. You know what I mean? Like I think that like the fact that if you are a person of color, an indigenous person, a minority in this country, the fact that, you know, most people outside of the LGBTQ community don't know what the Stonewall riots were. Like the fact that actual histories of people who were not white are legitimately erased in our country, to then turn around and get all up in arms and dare to have the audacity to imply that by taking down a statue of a Confederate soldier or changing the name of an army base or having the audacity to take down Gone with the Wind for a minute and put it back up with a, hey, here's why this movie was racist. That gets you. That it makes me so angry that there's this accusation of erasing history by the power structure that has consistently erased history throughout our entire history.
It's a phenomenal point, Michael. That is a fantastic and phenomenal point that me being so race aware hasn't even thought about. I've just been so focused on fighting back at people who are saying, like, oh, you're erasing history by doing this. But no, they're still staying in the textbook. There's still books about this person. You're never going to erase this person. I didn't even think about the fact that the people erasing it are the same ones who have systematically erased a lot of the terrible actions that their race has done in the progression of this country. It's such a great.
Like, me growing up,
in every empire that's ever existed, this has happened. So yeah.
But the fact that I'm the kid who, grew up in the suburbs, and every Thanksgiving, half the class dressed up as Indians and half the class dressed up as pilgrims, and we had like a happy dinner together because we were told that's how that went down. I mean, it's one thing after another thing after another thing. The fact that I saw a tweet this week that was like, here's how racism is taught in America. Right. Slavery was bad. Abraham Lincoln fixed it. It was really good for a long time. Then things got bad again, but Martin Luther King fixed it. Now there's no racism. Like that is the equivalent of what we are taught. And that is so horribly inaccurate and so horribly offensive and so not to the service of anyways. Anyway, so long story short, with all of these things, I think when we get into cancel culture, which is the bigger sort of umbrella that we're talking about here, I think canceling things to the point of deleting them and pretending they never existed is not actually helpful for anyone. And I think it's not a nuanced reaction. But I do think that holding people accountable for the work that they did and what it said and what it meant for the time, and having actual discussion about what was good, what was bad, why it was bad, what it says about the culture of the time, what it says about where we're going and where we want to go, that is actually a useful way to use art to move us forward rather than cling on to something as, wouldn't it be great if things were this way still?
Yep. Great point. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to stop this discussion. We had an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies or downloading and listening to this episode of Geek Buddies on the podcast feed. Can't thank you enough and tell you how much we appreciate your support and your love of our show and all your comments and tweets. And if you're when you're watching us, please leave a comment below. Please leave a like below on this video as well. It's very important. The likes and the comments move us up in the YouTube algorithm to get noticed, to get this channel noticed and the show noticed by them as well. Shannon, what do we got to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it's @MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it's @TheRochaSays.
Mikey?
Yeah, listen. Check out our tweets. Listen to what we say. If you don't like it, leave a comment. Let's have a nuanced discussion about it. Bottom line is, we've actually been loving the comments lately that you've been leaving on YouTube. We've been loving the tweets that you guys have been sending out. We've been loving a lot of that discussion. So we just want to encourage more of that. Definitely, like Johnny said, subscribe to his page, like this video, leave comments below. If you are listening to us and you're not on the YouTube channel, check out the YouTube channel because you get to see our smiling faces. But if listening to us while you're running is your thing and you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or Anchor or wherever it is, please take a moment after that jog or after that drive to whip out the phone, hit a like, leave a comment, just do whatever you can to spread it forward. And obviously retweet us, post us on Facebook, spread us around wherever your people are at, because we love having these conversations. We love talking geek stuff with you guys, and we want to continue doing it.
Yeah, and speaking of talking geek stuff with you guys, I think we can say we are going to do our first live episode of the Geek Buddies. We had planned for it next week. I think we're going to wait an extra week. Yeah, do a little 2 weeks of promotion for it. I think does that sound right for you guys?
I think so. It's gonna be exciting. We were all discussing it, and you guys have been so much fun to sort of interact with on YouTube and so much fun to interact with on Twitter that we figured, I think, like Johnny said, in a couple weeks we'll post when the episode is going to happen, and you guys can join in. Pop up in a fourth box and let's have a nerdy chat. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to interact with you all live on the Outlaw Nation, on the Geek Buddies for sure. All right. For Shannon McClung, Michael Vogel, I'm John Rocha. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Geek Buddies, and we'll talk to you next time on the Geek
Buddies.
Hey!